What's the quickest way someone lost your respect? XGF found someone's ATM card left in the machine. Promptly went on a shopping spree. I was so furious. People like her are the reason I have a panic attack when I can't find my wallet. Just a straight up scummy thing to do. She could go to prison for that. When I was in school at around 14, two of my friends got into an argument and one of them yelled, "You're such a piece of crap. No wonder your sister killed herself." I know kids can be buttholes, but that took it to another level. Friend stole a hat from me and I caught him trying to sell it at a flea market after he lied about knowing where it was. I found it with a price tag on it. That's so weird. My manager doing what I just told a customer we can't do because of policy. As in, I want to return this gift card. It doesn't work. We can't do that. We do not do returns on gift cards because we cannot verify the balance. If there is an issue with the gift card, you need to contact Visa and have them solve the issue. My computer system is even set up so that if you try to return it like you are supposed to, it'll tell you to frick off. Customer asks for manager and manager just gives her the value of card plus the fee by returning it as a non-taxable item. The reason it's policy is because it's a scam and they want a double dip. They use the card and they want to see if they can get the cash they just spent back again. And of course the customer came back 2 more times and asked to return the card again and again. In total she got $615 because my manager is such a T and so scared of getting negative reviews. Your manager is exactly why people get away with this. Spineless imps that would rather bow down to a customer doing something wrong instead of actually doing what they're supposed to because they don't want to get yelled at by someone trying to fleece them. My girlfriend's mum has MIS and is now struggling with mobility. A recent Christian concert friend of my girlfriend's who has been a brilliant friend for 20 years said if she came to church and followed the Lord this wouldn't have happened to her. 20 years of friendship gone in a sentence. After reading a few posts on here, I'd like to comment that the God punished you for your sins mentality is completely unbiblical. The Bible says that each of us has sinned and is no better than another. Following God means to obey and trust Him despite of whatever happens in life. It will not automatically omit hardships in life. My freshman year of college, she had just lost a board game and threw a fit. At first I thought she was joking, but soon realized she was completely serious. A 20-year-old having a tantrum over Ticket a Ride in front of her friends and residents. Thinking it made her seem scary rather than juvenile. Never could respect her after that. Cones of Dunshire is no joke. I called my sister out for having my elderly mother co-sign on a loan. It was obvious that mom had dementia and was unable to handle her finances. Her response: "She hasn't been diagnosed yet." Again, fricked up crap here. It's hard to respect someone who is unwilling to own up to it when they're wrong. Everyone's wrong sometimes, and refusing to accept it feels like cheating out of the social contract in a way. I was astounded by how blatantly people could do this until I realized they often lie to themselves about it just as much as to me. They are literally convinced in their heads that they were right and that's why they are able to lie like that so easily and shamelessly. AWW, she's so beautiful, I feel bad for her. What a waste of beauty. I'm on a wheelchair. I feel bad for you for being ugly but able to walk. What a waste of legs. Best comeback ever. Little bit of backstory. I once had a friend, whom I considered a good friend, randomly message my then girlfriend asking if we were still together. I thought he was just checking up on me, making sure it was a good relationship because when she said yes, he said good. Fast forward now, about 2 weeks after we break up, he messages her again, saying the same thing. Proceeds to try to console her and literally that night tries to flirt with her and sends her a dong pic. Does this many times for the next few months. Her not reciprocating or showing any interest. Not knowing that she and I were still very close and she was telling me everything. He also had a girlfriend at the time that he was trying to convince my ex that they broke up. I've lost all respect and I'll never give it back. A simple apology and talk could reconcile our friendship, but he'll never be respected by me ever again. I took my son to work with me while I was on holiday to pick up a paycheck. I met our shipper and introduced my son who has a slight speech impediment. My son said hello and stammered on the H. The shipper started to laugh at him. I took my son's hand and we walked away. Didn't speak to the shipper again. My boss charged a colleague for a table's bill because that table had left without paying and was seated in her section, thus being her responsibility. The bill was £75. We're paid $6.95 an hour. This was on Christmas Day. Seeing my employer act friendly to other employees' faces and then immediately trash talk them the second they leave the room. I moved down to Florida in the middle of my 11th grade year. After a few months of getting to know people, I found myself hanging out with a group of kids who on the weekends would go out bean hunting. These freaking kids would go driving around in Little Mexico with BB guns, airsoft guns, and they even told me stories about them physically beating harmless people just because they were Hispanic. I really couldn't believe that people would do this kind of crap to random people. About 20 years ago, one of my friends told me how he and his other friends would aim a firearm at random people walking on the street. They were hundreds meters away, looking through their scope and targeting people with an unloaded firearm. That's when I realized we may be facing death any day of the week without knowing it, because of pure buttholes. Making fun of someone for not knowing something how to do something. Once a couple of kids from a group were making fun of a man for asking questions about how to use the computer. Nobody is born with instant knowledge about everything. A family member of mine recently found out she had been infected with Zika. She was 6 months pregnant. After trying to get pregnant for years with no luck, she had given up hope of ever having a baby, but by some miracle was able to conceive. When she told her mother-in-law the news, that horrible woman said to her, "I should have known this would happen when I first met you and saw the way you were dressed," implying that because she wore short shorts and wore tank tops, she wasn't a worthy mother. Poor girl was devastated and blamed herself for getting Zika even though no one knew it was in the area at that time. Still, she decided that she would carry the baby to term. He was born 2 weeks ago. No microcephaly, no health issues of any kind. Also, and this is the real kicker, he tested negative for exposure to the virus. My best friend of 11 years beat up his girlfriend. I cut him out of my life completely and want nothing more to do with him. There used to be a homeless man that would sleep outside of the pizza place I used to work at. Never bothered anyone, never asked for food, though we did offer him some when we had leftover pies. Middle of winter, he stopped coming around. Couple weeks later, co-worker tells me him and his friends dumped water on him while he was sleeping for shoots and gigs. Thinking I would think it was funny. Yeah, no. That's a whole new level of douchebag here. I seriously don't know anyone who would be that morally depraved. I can't even imagine ever having talked to someone like that. Like seriously, this is straight up cartoon villain evil here. One sentence. I can't believe he's not over his dad's death yet. The kid's dad had died barely 2 months ago at the time. My buddy's parents died like 8 years ago and he's still not over it. Wouldn't ever judge him for it though. Everyone reacts and behaves differently to people dying. Plus they were his freaking parents, and really freaking awesome people. A baby was admitted to the hospital because it had cancer, amongst other things. Lady says it got what it deserves. Everything happens for a reason, right? This person who was barely a few months old was such an evil person that God thought it deserved cancer. A buddy of mine in high school once told a girl I had a crush on that I had scabies. She stopped even associating with me after that. I then found out he did that so he could try and court her. For the record, no, I did not have scabies. I knew a guy my freshman year of college. He was an aspiring musician and was very depressed about his recent ex-girlfriend. He would frequently complain that women only like stupid muscular guys and how he never got laid because of that. I would go home almost every weekend and sometimes I would come back to hear about how he got drunk and got laid, but then would just complain a few days later about how he never got laid. Finally, toward the end of the second semester, a friend of mine had a girl up for the weekend. I was home. He and the girl hit it off and they ended up sleeping together a few times that night. The girl liked him and suggested that they maybe start talking and possibly go on a date. He tells her no and that this isn't going past right now. The girl becomes noticeably bummed out, so he asks my other friends if they can drive her home. Context: it's 2 AM, my school was in NH and she lived in Maine. My friend said no initially, but he said they could drop her at a halfway point, so they agreed. They drop her off at a McDonald's at about 4 AM and head back. He tells my friends that her dad or friend will be there to get her soon. I come back on Monday and he tells me in private the whole story. When he gets to the part about the McDonald's, he admits that there was nobody coming for her and he lied to my other 2 friends in order to get rid of her. Worst part is that he's laughing as he says all this and expected me to laugh too. Couldn't be in the same room with him after that. A couple people I know have done this lately. Made a GoFundMe for some trivial crap. I'm not going to give details on the specific fundraisers just in case, but take my word for it. It's the most poorly disguised, pathetic attempt to beg for money I've ever seen from someone who absolutely doesn't need it. A few years ago, we had some teens go door to door raising money for their spring break vacation to Mexico. This wasn't for volunteer service or community work, just give me money so we can go party. When I was in 6th grade, there was a girl who we'll call Emma in my class who was a little odd. She was painfully shy and awkward. Her clothes were too small for her, and she smelled kind of bad. A less known fact and possibly irrelevant other than to explain some of her strangeness was that she had been sexually abused for years by a family member. I was best friends with her cousin, who told me in confidence, because I was nice to Emma. My friend was not a gossip and was protective as frick of her cousin. Emma usually ate lunch in the classroom and would opt to spend recesses in study hall, presumably either because she felt more comfortable away from people or to avoid being bullied, possibly both. One day we had recess in the gym, pretty common when it was freezing or raining out, and Emma is there. Some days study hall wasn't available because a teacher was sick or whatever, I don't know. She's sitting on the bleachers drawing and a couple of other kids are hanging around on the bleachers as well. One boy in particular, a popular kid well liked by students and teachers, is talking to her. I saw this and something about the way Emma looked made me stop playing dodgeball and walk over. As I approached, I hear the boy calling her trailer trash and asking if her trailer home had a shower. He was laughing and a couple others nearby were laughing too, some of whom I'd considered friends before. Lost all respect for every one of them. Emma wasn't crying or anything, just ignored them and kept drawing. Unfortunately, I let my emotions get the better of me, punched him right in the face. When our 26-day-old daughter died, my wife and I hunkered down and quit showing up to church for a while. A friend from there finally touched base with me months later, and I asked him why no one had come looking for us or tried to help after the funeral. He said, "I've known people who have had miscarriages before, and it didn't take this long to get over it. When are you going to get over it?" This conversation was almost 6 years ago and my blood still boils when I think about these words. Update. Thanks for the well wishes. Since the loss of our daughter, we've been blessed with 3 fantastic little children. No, we aren't over it, but our new normal is a happy one with moments of sadness. Just remember to use kind words. You never know what people are going through. My roommate got a cat and decided since it's his cat, he can do what he wants with it. That includes shaking it pretty aggressively and squeezing it until it meows because he likes to hear it meow sometimes. Needless to say, the cat hates him and spends all of his time in my room or my roommate's. But I can't respect someone who treats any animal like that. I hope you or your roommate take that cat with you when you leave. Told me that I was betraying my black brothers and sisters by dating a white man. I'm half white and half black, and he's still a racist butthole. I love my boyfriend, regardless of skin color. Yep, I'm mixed and I've been told that too. I'll date whomever I want to date. Some of my black family members looked at me like I was crazy when I brought a Filipino home for Thanksgiving. My uncle started to say something, but thankfully my cousin cut him off. Supervisor kept giving me additional work that wasn't my responsibility. I was less than 2 weeks into a new job in a warehouse, and eventually another supervisor asked what I was doing, so I told them, and they cussed the other supervisor out for putting myself and other people in danger when I had not been trained how to offload trucks and navigate the docks. Ever since then, when this first supervisor tells me to do work, I ask someone else first. The better question is, why is he still managing people? Witnessed a group of my students bullying a Down syndrome student on the playground. I did not look forward to class that day. A couple years after my mom died, my dad kind of randomly told me I was lucky I was born. I knew my mom had a couple miscarriages between my elder sister and me, but then my dad proceeds to brag about how mom had caught him cheating with some hairdresser. He said she would just come over every lunch break and we'd drive out in the desert and frick. Lost a lot of respect that day. I'm sorry for your loss. Dude squeezed my then GF's breast right in front of me, then tried to laugh it off because he's gay and would rather play with this guy's big dong, referring to a random guy standing within earshot. I still can't believe I had to explain to this butthole that being gay doesn't entitle you to touch other people's bodies without permission. I don't go around grabbing people's dongs and saying it's okay. I'm straight, then harass some stranger to try and prove it. Loudly, and without caution, complaining about his ex within earshot of his 7-year-old daughter, calling the mother a CWB, going into explicit detail on why he not only dislikes her, but actively hates her, how he wishes it were legal to kill her, etc. All bluster and posturing, as he is a giant bee in his own right. The look on the poor girl's face as he railed about how much he hated her mother, someone that she obviously loves and looks up to, was heartbreaking. I'm a divorced dad, and the son of divorcees, and the one absolute rule that I've had since the day my daughter was born, is to under no circumstances speak ill of the other parent. Your drama and hurt feelings are not shared by your child. They have no need to hear the hurtful things you're saying about the other person. It only harms the kid. After a few minutes of listening to this man be about his poor daughter's mother, I mentioned that he should tone it down in front of her. His response was to ratchet up a notch, since she already knows all this. I couldn't believe that he didn't see the damage he was actively inflicting on the poor girl, and since that day, I've had zero respect for him as a person or parent. I had to get all mean face and obstinate with my mom's family, siblings, mom, because they constantly talked crap about my dad in front of me after my folks split. Yeah, he wasn't the greatest, but at the time I'm 13 and trying to figure out my identity, and you're not freaking helping by reminding me that according to you I'm one stroke 2 piece of crap. Anyone who sells pyramid scheme products. I met a nice girl at work. She had bachelor's in biology and seemed very level-headed, yet a few weeks later she messaged me asking if I could use more energy in my life because she has found this great new product by Level called Thrive. Had a friend of 10 plus years who totaled his car, with me in it, ran away on foot, and proceeded to falsify a police report saying it was stolen. Then he told his family the same GTA story. He got off scot-free. Then his grandma bought him a new car, and she is not a wealthy person. He played the victim when it was his fault, lied to the law, and more importantly, to everyone he loved most, yet bailed out of that friendship with the quickness. My boyfriend's brother and wife. She has a bad case of baby fever but can't conceive and has had several miscarriages. There's been 2 instances where she wants a puppy to calm her baby fever, so she gets her husband to get her a puppy. A few months later, she gets pregnant and lo and behold, they can't keep the dog anymore because we're having a baby. Instead of taking the dog to the shelter, they abandon it in someone's backyard. My boyfriend confronted him about it, but he just shrugged it off and said he had no choice. Yes, you did. You just decided to be an butthole. A couple weeks later, she miscarries. Then they get another dog after that because she's depressed. A couple months later, they for some reason can't take of it anymore, so they abandon it at my boyfriend's parents, and the woman still has the nerve to call it her baby. She is not your baby. You decided to abandon her for whatever crazy reason, and then you still get another dog. This dog they've kept the longest, but now they're talking about giving it up again because he poops and pees everywhere. Then house train it, you fricks. She always pines that she wants a baby, but I honestly hope they never do because they are just selfish people. My mom gave birth to my stillborn sister. I don't want to give details about this. After that she talked to Vicar about it. What he said was, "It's God's will. This happened because of your sins." After that we never went to church again. I have heard the God's will reasoning often, but it was more in the context of it's God's will. Nobody could have changed it. Try to pull yourself together and find some peace. Or even it's God's will. He liked Ziz and called them to him. But saying it's your sins, yeah right. Let's add one more to it by clobbering you. After listening to my manager praise a friend of mine at work for his hard work, She decided to have a hearty laugh about how she hoped he didn't think he was going to be working here much longer as layoffs were coming after the holidays. Being insensitive is just so ridiculously annoying to me. Oh man. A co-worker was crying in the kitchen at work, like scared hiccups naughty crying, because she was so afraid of our boss, who would fly off the handle and be a complete bully, like he'd start screaming and yelling and then progress to really quiet intimidating threats. I tried to be supportive. I told her it was going to be okay and she didn't have to put up with this. I asked her to come with me to HR and I'd stay with her while she filed a complaint. Her response was to get really angry at me and snap at me. She said something like I would never do that, rubs eyes and storms out. I remember thinking, people like you are why people like him get away with being abusive at work. You enable it because you're a coward. Afterwards, I thought maybe I'd been too harsh on her. I figured she was just scared and had been so cowed by him that she was basically acting like an abused spouse. My initial judgment proved correct, however, because as time went on 3 senior managers in different departments, my boss's equals, complained about his behavior, as well as at least 4 other junior employees in other departments after he'd tried to bully them or had full-on harassed them both with aggressive behavior and with sexually inappropriate behavior. His behavior towards me eventually got so bad that I had to file a formal complaint too, threatening me in person and by email phone on the weekends, shouting in my face, then being extremely touchy-feely, inviting me to go on non-work trips with him as his PA. The worst roller coaster ever. 1 minute all over me, the next minute accusing me of being a work sheebie. HR asked my sniveling co-worker to come in to confirm that she had witnessed his behavior towards me, not even towards herself, because they knew all about it, but she had point blank refused to say anything even when asked by HR. She looked at me, looked at the HR director and said, "I've never seen that. I'm not saying she's lying or anything. I've just never seen that." One of the senior management started referring to her as Eva Braun after that. She chose to actively support and enable a person who was making everyone's lives miserable. And because she wouldn't confirm what he was doing, he got away with it. Over time, he realized she was the only one who was under his thumb, so he eased up on her and she became his pet. She used to intentionally tell him untruth things she knew would send him into a rage at other people, to make sure his temper was directed at anyone but her. So my initial writing off of her ended up being justified. Anytime I think of her I just feel such contempt. I gotta put better than even odds that they were freaking. When I was in RA, I had a resident who got really drunk and started spouting off a lot of homophobic stuff in the middle of the hall, making another resident cry. Later on, another resident whom I had a lot of respect for, class president, triple major, pretty much came from nothing, came up talking to me telling me I shouldn't write the drunk person up because she was just spouting off the truth about them, never looked at her the same way again. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.